we haven't been aggressive with our approach so far, to be honest. We were always like held back. We always wanted the customer to come and be open-minded about the things that they're going to experience in Petra. And now I can say with confidence that when you enter through any Petra's door, everything's very similar. You get a cappuccino, you get a cortado, you get a filter coffee, you get something to eat. But what you end up in front of you is, in terms of taste and experience, something totally different.
Welcome to or welcome back to Coffee with April. My name is Patrick Rolfe, and this is a conversation with some amazing professionals and entrepreneurs in the coffee industry, sharing their perspective and experience. It's about integrity, quality, and the future. This conversation is with Kaan. Kaan is the founder and CEO of the Petra Roasting Company in Istanbul, Turkey. He shares the story behind how he created his own coffee empire. For me, Petra has been one of the coolest brands in specialty coffee for a very long time, and this is an absolutely amazing conversation. So it's Saturday afternoon. We're sitting in Istanbul in a back room of the Petra Roastery. I'm together with Kaan, the company's founder. We're having whiskey. And we want to talk about. I've known Kaan and I know Petra now for, is it almost 3 years?
Yeah.
And one of the really cool things with this company, and for those of you that know me, you know that I spent the last 2 years telling everyone they have to go to Petra, they have to see this. It's the integrity of the company, which today in specialty coffee is very hard to find, right? We're coming into a situation where we're all kind of merging into the same kind of company. We look a bit differently, but we basically do the same thing. So one of the really cool things here is the company's integrity. And we just want to have a conversation, a discussion, and see if we can figure out what the kind of key behind this is and just the story of Petra. Because if you're in specialty coffee, Petra is too good not to know, okay? So, Kaan, for those of you that don't know about Petra, can you just describe a bit about, how did it start? Why are you in Istanbul? Why a coffee roastery?
Sure. The way we started Petra was we were actually trying to find really good tasting stuff. And by stuff, I mean liquids. And before I even had the idea for opening a roastery, I was always interested in things, liquids that tasted really good, like wine, whiskey, and tea, and especially coffee, because you can get a lot of complex tastes from drinks that you don't get from food. And many chefs would argue against this, but as a consumer, I think that's what I prefer and what I like. So everything got shaped around the idea that liquids and their tastes. And I got introduced to coffee maybe 3 years before I founded the company. And before that, I was really into cocktails, which was really hot in US, where I was living at the time. And mixing really good spirits with good ingredients and getting I'm not talking about like colorful cocktails. I'm talking about like real spirits, like see-through cocktails that are really old school, and it's the mix between like a good gin and a good vermouth, stuff like that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And then when I was introduced to coffee, that I saw an opportunity where you can be in the manufacturing, because in drinks you cannot do that. It's the barriers for entry is so high with liquor businesses.
Yep.
And it's very difficult for you to be in the manufacturing stage. And that's when starting up a roastery started taking shape.
When you were in the US, where you studied, in Boston, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So the home of George Howell, I believe.
Yeah.
Were you always sure you wanted to come back to Istanbul and do it in Istanbul? Was it important for you, or did you also think about maybe doing something in the States as well?
I did want to do something in the States, but what pushed me to come back to Istanbul was the political situation of 2012.
Yeah.
And there was these protests against the government and the way the country has been being run for so many years.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of youth energy that I saw from outside. I was unfortunate not to be a part of the protest and all what's happening here. I was just a spectator from outside. But the energy that it gave me just was like a flash that I wanted to be a part of it somehow.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll talk about this later, but even though I wasn't there at that time, I think what happened, like me personally, and what we have accomplished as a team as in Petra, actually contributed to the things that I wanted to do, but I couldn't because I wasn't physically there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Oh, super cool. So you're in the U.S. You know you want to work with quality beverages.
Yes.
You know you want to come back. You know you want to do it in Istanbul. Let's say you're back in Istanbul. How do you start? Do you start by yourself? Do you start? What's the vision? Are you starting small? Or are you starting big? We have, people doing it in a lot of different ways in that sense.
To be honest, I wasn't really self-confident, so I always wanted to start really small.
Yeah.
I still am comparatively not self-confident in my investments. I always fear the worst, but it never makes me stay at home and not do stuff. I always do the stuff, but it's always this pulling me back. Yeah. But I managed to rise above it, so to say.
There's always a level of anxiety whenever you go start your own company, regardless of how you start.
And we started really small. We were in a shared environment, which we are in right now, but it's totally Petra now. Before it wasn't. So we were sharing the space. It's close to 2,000 square meters where we are right now. We were sharing maybe like 50 square meters of that place. Yeah. Now we spread out like 5 or 6.
Yeah, it should be noted that they have all of it now, if not more.
Yeah. And this location is not a very popular location in terms of neighborhood. You don't have so much foot traffic. You don't have people working around here, so it was not a really strategic place to start. But it actually gave us this notion that, okay, we're not going to be able to fill this place up with coffee lovers, so what should we do next? So we started with zero expectations of filling the space.
Yeah.
So that's actually one of the things that I always talk about. Like, the plan is never going to work out most of the time. Like, you should always have a plan. That's goes without saying. But the reality is going to be totally different. So you have to always be able to adapt, and you have to have your trusted investments. I'm not talking about investments in terms of capital. I'm talking about investments as personal and also investments into the team, because that's what matters at the end of the day. People you work with.
Yeah. You mentioned that you wanted to start a production company in that sense, right? But you guys started out as a coffee shop, no?
We
started as a roastery.
So by the time our first cup of coffee that we served was December 2013, and the company was founded in June 2013, something like that. And in between, it was all about like planning, importing stuff, because in Turkey there was maybe 2 other coffee companies that were into specialty coffee and doing it in a different way, coffee in a different way, and none of them were wholesalers. They were only coffee shops. And what I wanted to do is become a wholesaler, because I'm always, like I said before, I'm always scared about interacting with customers, investing in a coffee shop where you are exposed that much.
Yeah.
What I learned from school is not service; it's more business. So
Yeah.
I wanted to be focusing on the parts that I'm good at, so to say, or experienced at, or
Yep.
learned the things that I learned in school.
Yeah.
So I definitely wanted not to be in the cafe business. I wanted to be in the coffee business.
Yeah, I think it's a it's a very different business. I think that's important to understand that you can do a lot of things in coffee, but they're all very different. But it needs to be stated for like those of you trying to kind of start something today. It's like when Kaan started this in Istanbul, we're talking about they're the pioneers. They're the first ones. Think back to I don't know Tim Venable like 10, 12 years ago. It's a very big challenge to go in and try to create a market, which is basically what you guys have been doing, or at least what I've seen over the last 3-4 years.
Yep. And we haven't been aggressive with our approach so far, to be honest. We were always like held back. We always wanted the customer to come and be open-minded about the things that they're going to experience in Petra. And now I can say with confidence that when you enter through any Petra's door, everything's very similar. You get a cappuccino, you get a cortado, you get a filter coffee, you get something to eat. But what you end up in front of you is, in terms of taste and experience, something totally different. That's what we aim for.
Yeah.
Like, we don't... familiarity is great, but in terms of taste, when you put something in front of people that is totally unexpected, that's when you do something, I think, remarkable. Like it's not in terms of like great, but it's remarked in the person's memory. Sometimes it can go right, sometimes it can go wrong, but you try to be better each time.
Yeah, for sure. I want to go back to the... I know we're jumping ahead of ourselves here, and we'll go back to like talking roastery, coffee shop, bakery, restaurant. You guys do so many things now, but you said something like when you open the door, and the key thing that strikes me the most about Petra is that exact kind of thing. Like whenever you go to any Petra, how many shops now? Five. Yes. So 4 shops open for the public, and then the other one. Yeah. You go in there, they're all a bit different, and it's hard to explain. That's why you all have to come here. But there is this amazing integrity about it. There's something unique. The first time I opened the door and I went into a Petra, I realized for the first time in coffee, I went into a coffee shop that I haven't been to before. And not as a physical thing, but I went into a coffee shop that wasn't as every other coffee shop in the world, which, to be fair, most coffee shops are. And I would love to just hear, is this like a super genius, elaborate plan that you had from the beginning, or how do you manage after so many years as well, so many places, so much staff now as well? How do you, first of all, create that integrity? And how do you maintain it? Like, where does that come from? Is it something you think about, or has it just,
It's definitely something that we think about and plan ahead, but it's not something that was a part of the business plan initially.
Yeah.
So one thing that I always want to do is have fun when I'm doing business. So I have to be challenged in terms of creatively and mentally to be able to go forward. Like I want to have how to say the next project has to be always something different for me.
Yeah.
And in coffee, most of the time, it's when a design is set up, then it's maintained throughout all the coffee shops or every project that the company is doing.
Yeah.
What we wanted to do is we wanted to explore different ideas, because like the coffee scene in Turkey wasn't evolved enough, like in many European or American cities where there's a culture of coffee, where there is this tradition of drinking coffee and buying coffee, and so it was non-existent. So we went ahead and we said like, okay, every project we have, we're gonna take it from scratch. It's not gonna be like a big chain of coffee that copies and pastes all the design aspects. We're gonna have we're gonna fit the environment that we're opening the shop. We're gonna fit the location. We're gonna fit the customer base in that neighborhood. So it's always a challenge, and it's a challenge that we tackle with creativity and teamwork. So, like I said, it's not something that is planned, but it's something that we have a lot of fun and a lot of, like you said, maybe integrity while doing it. Like it's so it comes hand in hand. I don't know if that explains.
I think it makes a lot of sense, and I've always imagined that part of the success of because it is. I know that people maybe internationally are not so aware of it, but it is the coolest brand in coffee.
No,
And like
thanks.
hands down, it's way cooler than my own as well. But I would maybe argue that part of that is the location, as in you're in a country, you're in a city where coffee is brand new, right?
True.
So you're not exposed to all of this. This works. This roastery does it like this and they seem successful. This coffee shop does it like this and they seem successful. So let's copy and paste and do what they do. I mean, go to London and it's basically the same coffee shop times 100. Some exceptions to be fair, but still, would that be fair to say that it's been in a way helpful to not be so exposed to everyone else in the industry?
I think it's definitely an advantage, and also professionally speaking, I did not have so much experience in terms of running a coffee shop or a restaurant or a coffee roastery. So everything we did was not copy, but we went to the root of problems. For example, it can be from accounting to recipes to staff control, customer service, everything. And we went down to the problems that we were facing, and we said like, okay, so thinking straight, how can we fix this problem? And because we didn't have any real experiences and real examples to follow, then we had to come up with our ideas. And I never tried to find answers in other businesses, other establishment, other coffee shops, stuff like that. So it was, I think it made it more creative, the process more creative, and also it made our solutions unique.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes sense, but it was like that. Like I can give examples how we do accounting in terms of like how we stock control, or how we do logistics, which is a big problem for us because we grew in 4 or 5 years to 5 coffee shops, and we have 2 more coming. So logistics is way beyond me, and we're always thinking like, how can we make it better? And since we're a young company, we cannot afford professionals. So it's young people just trying to come up with ideas and like ways to solve problems that companies and coffee businesses face daily.
Let's see if we can put some just to kind of rewind a bit. Let's see if we can put a timeline on this. So because I go to Istanbul now, was it twice a year maybe? And every time I come, before I even put my foot in the door, I know that Kaan has opened a new business or a new branch of the business. I know that something has happened. Like the room we're sitting in now, which is amazing, filled with Turkish antiques. Is that proper? French, Turkish.
They're Turkish. Unfortunately, most of the stuff you see here has been thrown away. They're not like purchased in antique shops. They're thrown away or sold to like nothing. But compared to the value, and we try to find these stuff like they're like stuff from palaces, old palaces, and the government just throws everything out and brings another new designer to make everything new, which is very unfortunate for the palaces, but fortunate for us. We can get our hands on like really cool stuff.
Exactly, no, and you see that the second you go into one of your coffee shop. But the point here is that the room that we're sitting in, that was, I believe 2 nights ago, they had a fine dining experience here, coming from their own restaurant kitchen in this space as well. The first time I was here, this was basically a stock room, or like empty. It wasn't anything here.
The year before, the whole kitchen was stock room.
Yeah, exactly. And then where the bakery is was Kaan's old office, you know.
Yeah.
So every time I come, it's something new. But just to kind of clarify, simple, like how did you start? Coffee place, roastery, coffee shop. When did all of this happen?
So 2013 December, we gave our first cup of coffee to our first customer, which was, I would say, unfortunate to be there or fortunate. I don't know. Like, I don't know how that guy just came upon that place. But anyways, that's how we started. And we started going to restaurants and trying to sell our coffees. There were a couple of restaurants that were interested, and we started building our brand. And the brand is actually very key because we started the company when this third wave concept was like a wildfire in US and in Europe. But just because you were using these specific brewing methods doesn't mean that you are actually a part of a trend. And we have always tried to steer away from being associated with trends, because we want to have a company that actually stands for premium locally manufactured goods like coffee, and now with bread, and hopefully with milk someday. So that's how the brand was created. And
what's the story behind the name for those of you that don't know?
I would say it's a calculated name. Like there's no like life-changing story behind the name or a philosophy. The letters in the name are letters that I wanted to be in the name, first of all. So they're all vertical and sharp.
Okay, so it's actually a design aspect of each letter in the name.
Yeah, but the design and the sound of the letters are also go hand in hand. So T, P, R, these are, for me, they sound really sharp. And two-syllable names are always really easy to remember. And because like everybody was going towards things that to do with coffee, like most of the brands I've seen so far, like bean that, drip this.
For sure.
So we wanted to steer away from that, and we wanted the name to have nothing to do with coffee. And our logo is so it's a moon with a face, is a Masonic sign of wise moon, and it doesn't have anything to do with coffee. Like, you don't drink coffee at night normally.
True.
We do, but it's sort of relating, because like coffee is the drink for like it's the coffee that wakes you up instead of puts you down. So maybe it can be linked to that, but and the name again, going back to the name, we wanted the name of the company to be easy to pronounce for Turkish people who doesn't know anything who doesn't speak any word of English, and also a European person to be able to pronounce it very easily. So, so the letters were selected that way, and something that we figured out would be real. Like we thought about this, but it wasn't tested. But later I came to realize that it was actually like a bullseye thought process, which was when you say the name Petra to a Turkish person, they think of like a really blonde, pretty woman that is European or Scandinavian.
Scandinavian,
So, and that's actually is like everybody who comes in that is local, they ask for who is Petra, can we meet her, stuff like that. So it did really had that connotation, but for a European or like a foreigner, it sounds very Oriental, because they think straight about the city in Jordan, the ruins. So it sounds very European or very foreign to a Turkish person, and it sounds very Oriental to a European or an American person.
For sure.
So it goes both ways. So it's like we thought about this, but like for a second, and then we saw that it was really like that. So
Yeah.
everybody's like, are you guys from Jordan? When people in Paris, they hear about the name, they're like, no, it's just the way it sounds. Like, it's the way the word is resonating in your mind.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah.
Back to the coffee shop. So you have a roastery with a coffee shop in the roastery. When did you start expanding the other coffee shops?
Before we started opening our coffee shops, we were doing a lot of events, like small events, big events. The coffee festival was non-existent in Turkey at that time. There was just the barista exhibitions were happening, but as a part of a big food and beverage fair.
Yeah.
It wasn't a festival on its own or an organization on its own. It was very young scene. So we were doing a lot of events, and after one event, somebody in this shopping mall offered us a place in the shopping mall, which we still have today, and we were very limited in terms of investment capabilities at that time. So we said, like, let's go and design a kiosk where we sell coffee to go, and we were fortunate enough that the big coffee companies that are still prominent right now, they were actually selling coffee not by cups but by paper cups.
Okay.
So Turkish people got used to drinking filter coffee and coffee on the go, coffee during the day, except traditional Turkish coffee in paper cups. So we said, okay, it's not going to be a really big problem for us because the big companies paved the way already. So the first coffee shop we had was only to go and paper cups. And it was successful because it was a local brand, and it was the location was right. Still today, I think the location was really right, and we were fortunate enough that because we did have no idea. Only coffee shops that were working during that time were all foreign franchises, like Costa Coffee, that coffee, Coffee Nero and stuff. So we didn't know, and it worked out fine. And then we got encouragement to keep on going and having this local brand touch people's lives in different parts of the city and different styles. So, and the growth plan was, like I said, I wanted to have fun when I was creating coffee shops and new stores. I wasn't always thinking financially, to be honest. I was a bit spoiled sometimes. I wanted to do something really nice, really unique, really out of this world that I missed. Like, I missed types of coffee shops that I used to go in New York or in Paris. So I wanted to be able to recreate them in a new way. So it's not the same, because if you try to do the same, it's never the same. So you should try to go to the feeling that find the feeling that is making you feel that place or that product, and try to recreate that based on the feeling, not the physical attributes. So the next shop was the one in Topacı, which is a neighborhood that is more residential. It's a very old neighborhood, like from the 60s, 70s. The apartments are really old, and it wasn't a gentrified area, because the residents of that area were still living there. So it doesn't have the gentrification aspect to it, but it was so traditional, and I was personally living in the area, so it was for me like my own coffee shop right down the street.
Somewhere to drink coffee in the afternoon after work.
So that was the second store. Then we added.
Can you before we move on? I don't know if you remember this, but I remember this. First of all, it's one of the most beautiful coffee shops, which you didn't mention, but it is. Like it's every single little detail there has a story behind it, and it has this amazing kind of vintage bar look to it. Yet it's still modern. It's I'm still confused as to how you managed to pull that off. But there was this story behind. There's a little detail, a drawing on the door where you draw the name, which was based on a traditional way of marking the house numbers.
Yeah. So the neighborhood that I'm talking about, Topacı, which is a very old neighborhood, like I said, the very distinctive thing that once you enter is ugly buildings from 60s, 70s, and their door signs. So there's always this myth that there's only one guy left that paints those apartment names, and this is uncommon. So we have names for apartments. So the buildings have names rather than numbers. It's very, I don't know, it's like a very neighborhoodly and very traditional. For example, if you call for a delivery, you don't say like this street, this number in the neighborhood. You just tell the name of the building, and the guy who's going to deliver your food, your whatever, they know the building. So it's very neighborhoodly. And the way that the names of the buildings are written is like gold on glass, and it's very unique for that neighborhood. There are a couple of other neighborhoods in Istanbul that have similar design aspects. So what we wanted to do is first of all, we named the coffee shop the Neighborhood Cafe. We promote it like that. We put it forward like that. And it's very difficult to explain that, but
no, go for it.
So we wrote the name of the coffee shop on the door, which is it's not unique. Everybody writes their coffee shop name, but it's in the same tradition that the names of the apartments were written or painted, so to say. But we did differently is that Topacı is a neighborhood that once you go in, if you're a tourist, for example, if you don't know the neighborhood, you don't know that you're in Topacı. It's not written anywhere. You might be able to like walk all throughout that neighborhood and you don't know that you're in Topacı. So what we wrote, this is graphics, so the written name of the store is Topacı, and very little on top, like you wouldn't notice it, we have Petra Roasting Company Topacı. So we wanted Topacı to be more important than the brand itself. And most of our coffee shops, you don't realize that it's Petra until you realize it way later. I don't see anyone going in, oh, this is Petra, let's go in. They're like, oh, this is Petra, we're in, you know? So that's something that we wanted. It's like, I think it's something personal. I don't like...
and I get that and respect.
It's a risk because...
For sure it's a risk, but it's also, I would argue it's a risk for anyone else, but for someone that has actually been to one of those coffee shops, it's so obvious. Like it's so obvious because again, it has this, I know I mentioned this a lot, but this identity or integrity where it's once you're in there, the vibe, everything from how the baristas are dressed to the little tiny antique details, and just all of these stories behind every single piece, you feel it, right? It's like an ambience there, right? You go in and you won't be able to mistake yourself in that sense, and I think that's a very fascinating part of it. But okay, so roastery, coffee shop, restaurant, bakery. How did that happen? Why did that happen? Isn't it difficult enough to have a coffee shop and a roastery? Or did you need the extra challenge? Is that why you...
Maybe, but when I'm thinking, like, I would say Petra with a kitchen is Petra 2.0. That's what I say. And so, I always feel like as a startup, if you stop running, then you might fall. Right now I'm feeling like if we stop running, we stop running. The fun is running. So the fun is growing the business, seeing how we can add more value to the company. But the kitchen project was actually started from a problem. And the problem was we were buying our bakery baked goods from outside and we weren't making as much money of the products that we were purchasing. So it was a problem that we didn't want to fix, but it was a problem nonetheless.
Yep.
And these things are not always planned. So what happened was I was looking into like trying to figure out a way that to first of all bring more people to the roastery, which we're in now.
Yeah.
And we've seen the problem that okay, everybody wants to drink coffee. Like, okay, going way back.
Yeah. Yeah.
For example, in New York at the time that I was living, you could go to a restaurant, then for lunch, then you can go to somewhere else to get your coffee, and at night you can go to a restaurant and you don't drink cocktails there, you go to a different place to get cocktails, and then a different place to get a different cocktail. So you were always quality driven, your day was quality driven and taste driven.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be the same in Turkey, but the plan did not work. The customer here was, so to say, lazy. They didn't want to travel that much, and also the city did not allow you to travel as easily. So if you wanted to travel, you had to take the taxi for 10 minutes and stuff like that. So it's impossible. Like it was a bad plan.
Yeah.
So, and what we wanted deep down is that we wanted to share our coffee, share our vision for coffee, share our product, and have the customer come to us and like taste our product and give us feedback, and then we move this whole coffee culture thing together to move forward.
Yeah.
But we realized something fundamental, that we needed people to come in.
Yeah.
And when 4 people are together and they wanna go to Petra or go to somewhere and have coffee, and one of them just wants to have something to eat, then the Petra is out of the question, and we weren't able to reach everyone.
Yeah.
It's not financial, it's like actually an adaptation to serve the coffee with just a couple of more steps between it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes sense, but we saw the challenge, so we had to fix it.
Yeah.
And like I said, opening a kitchen is not my expertise.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't experienced for it.
Yeah.
But luckily, I had a childhood friend who was who graduated from Lyon, from Bocuse Academy.
Yeah.
And got trained in San Francisco. So he walked into the door when I was looking at CVs of chefs that I could work with.
Yeah.
So it was an instance that, like I said, some things are not planned; they're all chance.
Yeah, it just happens.
And with Cenk, we created this concept where we took the things that we learned from coffee and implanted them into the kitchen. So, and that was product-based design, like designing the menu based on items, like the real items that make the food.
Yeah.
And we came up with the whole menu that we changed twice so far.
Yep.
And it's a very basic menu, but everything's so hearty and everything is pairable with coffee, and it has been a successful journey so far, and we're quite happy. And
yeah, for sure. And I think it's really cool. I think we all agree on the fact that if you open a business that serves something, you should take control and make sure that everything you serve is quality based, right?
Yeah.
And we all know that a lot of coffee shops, even though they serve really tasty coffee or really good coffee, sometimes the food aspect of it, or at least when it comes to creativity, but also in terms of quality, it's just not there, right? And it's interesting to see someone that actually takes on the whole kind of spectrum, because it didn't stop there. You end up doing a bakery as well to kind of do the final
I think we can talk about all the challenges and all the ideas and plans we had for bakery, the kitchen, the coffee business, but it all boils down to the team and the people. That's what I always say. Like, I couldn't have done it without the team, and I will not be able to do it without the team. So it has become more of a team effort and a team for me, it's a team building business.
Yeah.
Like right now, we're 50 people, which is a lot for.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Like that's when people say like, how do you like? Do you feel like you succeeded something? Do you feel successful? I don't look at the financials. I don't think of how many kilograms of coffee I sell a month.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of how many people, like-minded people, are in under the Petra umbrella.
Yeah.
That's for me. That's the success part.
Yeah.
And going back to the 2012, the protests and stuff like that. That's what I mean by I have in some way contributed to this, because I've managed somehow with the help of my team to bring more people in and have a company that actually is team based. We're definitely not customer based. We don't do anything that we don't want to. We don't serve Coca-Cola because you can drink Coca-Cola anywhere. Like it's not special. We want, once you enter Petra's door, we want everything to be special, everything to be different. Like I think that's the thing that I did for the country.
Yeah, no, but
that's too big.
But
that's
I get that, and I think if if any of you been to Istanbul, sadly, like first of all, Istanbul is probably the coolest city on earth, and everyone should go as well. But I agree with you with that, because a city, a country needs people that pushes quality forward. I think so, and I think that coffee is just a tiny part of it, and what you guys are trying to do has evolved into something way bigger than that.
Yeah.
But if you look at it on a more kind of we're not going to go into psychology here, but you said it yourself. You're 50 employees. You started out, sure, you knew you kind of wanted to work with quality focused production, which it's exactly what you're doing, which is amazing, because what I see with a lot of coffee companies, and I believe this to be an issue perhaps more in coffee than the other industries, is that somewhere along the way the owner is either losing their momentum, as you said, how important it is to keep on moving, or let's be frank, they start selling out the original core business or idea. Like, we all start with this philosophy about, we want to do quality, that's the only thing I'm going to do, and then you're 2-3 years in, that's when the first kind of financial struggle for most of us starts, and then all of a sudden you start having this product there, you start doing this, you're bringing Coca-Cola in the shop. Even if you wanted to do, nothing wrong with Coca-Cola, but point is, you start doing things that you initially promised yourself that you would never do. Right? And how did you, what was it for you as easy as those things never came to mind? Because surely you must have had also people around you that were like, Kaan, you should probably, try to do this now or do this now, and that would go better, because there's still so many external people, it's friends, family, other businesses, whatever, that has opinions, ideas, and thoughts. And how did you deal with all of that? How did you deal with all of the stress of external things that you don't necessarily can control when growing Petra? It's a big one, but interesting.
I think it's a personal choice. Like I said, since day one, we have tried to find our own way. We didn't follow any professional examples. So in a crisis, like, okay, we cannot sell enough coffee to sustain ourselves and we cannot grow. Most of the time people go for like buying cheaper coffee or buying a lot of the same coffee that they sell for 2 years, or different kinds of, it all changes from country to country, because like we have the import customs duties and stuff like that. So it's not as easy as a company in Europe to buy like really good coffee.
For sure,
So, and it boils down to personally how you want to continue doing and how you solve a problem. Like, for example, the currency exchange, for example, with the money that we buy good coffee and the money that we sell here, the currency, is the gap is growing day by day and tremendously.
Yeah.
So good coffee for us is getting more expensive, more and more expensive. And because of that gap, the purchasing power of our clients is going diminishing, so to say. So we cannot increase our prices, and we cannot get the coffee for a cheaper product. So we have to have some kind of creative way to compensate, because either you buy cheaper coffee for the price that you were buying good coffee, or you keep buying and start losing. You know, it's either that or this. So that's where the bakery and stuff like that come in. Like we look at our team and we see like, okay, what do we have here? What type of people do we have, and how can we create stuff here? We can export, but there's extremely competitive market to export. For sure. So we cannot export, and like shipping out of Turkey is extremely expensive. So things like that come together, and you try to figure out a way that you can make money on somewhere else instead of losing your quality, and you start buying cheaper products. You want to keep on buying good products, because in the core you want quality. You don't want to give up quality. That's not possible. And so it's a matter of choice, to be honest. It's a matter of I'm fortunate enough that I don't have partners. Because if I had partners or investors that wanted to monetize what we have all the time, and they were always thinking about returns, I would be forced to buy cheap coffee and sell it at a high price or stuff like that.
For sure.
But I can't, because I would be contradicting myself.
So for example, you say that as something easy, but most normal people would contradict themselves, right? So it's something with you that is actually relatively unique in that sense, at least in coffee, because I haven't seen this was a while ago back in London, and if Hoffman doesn't want me to say this, he needs to call me after this, but we had a discussion about coffee roasteries. And he just asked me, or basically like, do you know of any roastery in the world where you feel don't have any compromised products? To be honest and fair, and we try to make a list, and on that list were basically 3 companies. We're not mentioning any names, but there's a lot more coffee roasteries in the world than 3, and those are the 3 within specialty coffee that we mentioned that doesn't have an obvious compromised product. So you say it as something natural, but it's really something unique, right? It's something that is very, very rare, at least in the States and in the US, for sure.
But it should come natural. Like if we're
agreed, for sure.
If we're talking about like managing businesses, thinking entrepreneurial, I've seen so many really good businessmen that just think financial. They are very objective in terms of their business. They're like, I would sell it like if they gave me the right price and stuff like that. Like very like, how do you say, with corners. And they're really successful. And I admire them. But for me, it has been always personal. I think it's something to do with my personality, my upbringing, and that's where I value the people that I'm working with, my suppliers, my team, my customers. So I think it's a personal thing. And it's a good thing. Like I think I don't think it's always a bad thing to have personal opinions. You should not be objective about your business. You can be personal. You can take it personal. You can I don't know, it's hard to explain.
But I get that, but the funny thing is, and it's hard for you guys to understand listening as well, but the way you say that so naturally is like, again, it's realize that 99% of the people in the world would not sit here in front of me and say that, because they never made it that far, right? They had a company for longer than 3 years and they compromised.
Yeah.
And it didn't work, right? So again, like the that's why I say that everyone should jump on a flight and go to Petra, because what you guys are doing is you don't see that. And I travel. I've been around a fair amount to coffee places around the world, and it's still such a rare thing to find. I want to go back to this is up to you. You can say as much or as little as you want to about this. We're not going to go into detail like this is your upbringing, but I'm still going to ask because it's something I've been thinking about myself as well. Were you basically born with the vision of one day I'm going to start a company, or did you one day just wake up and say I want to start a company? Like, where did the motivation, the inspiration? A lot of people can travel and see interesting things, but most of them wouldn't go back to their home country and build up an empire. In that sense, right? So where does that come from?
To be honest, I didn't grow up to be in food and beverage. First of all, my family has a history of being in trade.
Yep.
So, but a really good friend of mine, my best friend, always said like, I cannot see you doing trade or anything like manufacturing, no way, office business, no way. That's the only thing I can remember, but I never had the notion that I would one day have my own company. And I never ever had the image that I would have a big company that I would run. So that came way later, and I don't think Petra is that big yet. So it's not to its full potential, to be honest. But no, I didn't think that I would have my own company. I didn't grow up thinking that way.
Yeah. So what was the tipping point in to steal something from Michael Gladwell? But what was the when did you then when did you realize that fuck, I'm gonna make a company. I'm gonna start this. Like, what is what made you change? Because you've been to university, you've been to schooling, and what in that process made you realize that I want to start a company?
I think that's I think I blacked out.
Okay.
I think I had a rush judgment going back here, and I didn't have anything I didn't have like a family business. I didn't have anything that I was going back to, I could have stayed in the States. I could have started my own company there, or started working at a coffee shop there, coffee company probably. But it was a rush decision. I said like, okay, I'm really interested in coffee. I'm really interested in, and I don't want to lose good coffee that I was used to. Even though I couldn't find that coffee when I went back to the States, but that's another story. But I said, I want to take the life that I'm used to and somehow take it to my hometown, because I always thought like I have to go back to Turkey at some point. If it was when I was 30, when I was 25, at some point I had to turn back. And I thought to myself, okay, right now I was 24 at that time, something like that.
Were you 24 when you started Petra?
Yeah.
Amazing.
So I said, I'm 24, I'll give 5 years. If I don't like it, 30, I can move somewhere else probably and see what happens. But if I stay here, and I still in the back of my head, I have this notion that I want to try it out in my home country. And like I said, at the time that I was thinking these things, there was a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of political, like modernization, stuff like that. So time has changed, things have changed, but that at that time I had to do that. And I realized that it was now or never at that time. So when I went back, I got into the city. I went straight to the I don't know how to say it in English, but the business
like registration
registration
thing.
yeah. And I said like I want to fund a company, and it's cheap. Like you don't pay anything to fund a company in Turkey. Like it was really easy, and without having anything, like no investment in the company.
Yeah.
And I started with what we called in the business school like family, friends, fools capacity. So I had a little bit of money from my family, a little money from my friends, and I bought a roasting machine, a 1 kilo Probat. And that's how it started, like roasting at home.
Yeah. And now you're roasting on a...
I'm roasting on a P12.
Yep. So that's a Probat 12 kilo for those of you that don't know.
Yeah. When we started the coffee business in Turkey, there was nothing. Like there was no brewing equipment being imported to Turkey. There was no coffee being imported properly to Turkey. And nobody knew how to import except the really big Turkish coffee companies. Yeah. And so we found our way. Like we said, okay, we don't have this product and we need this product, so we have to import it somehow.
Yeah.
And we did.
That is true, and it's.
When I remember, like I called, there is still La Marzocco in Turkey, and we're really good friends. But at the first time I called them, I was like, okay, I want a La Marzocco machine. They didn't send me a price list for a couple of weeks. They were like, no man, this guy doesn't know what he's asking for. Like,
I think that's
still have that machine.
It's such an important part of your story that, again, it's I started up in a company in Copenhagen where it takes 2 days for me to get green coffee as a roastery, right? It takes 1 day to get a La Marzocco machine if I wanted one, right? It's like starting up a coffee roastery in Turkey is not an easy thing to do, right? Especially when there isn't any model before you, right? We talked about earlier about this. It's so easy to copy other people and just do what they do. And for example, when I started April, it was I already knew how to do everything. I knew how to get everything. I can fuck up a green coffee order and I can still get a coffee in time to roast it. You fuck up a green coffee order and that's 2-3 months later, and you won't have any coffee. So it's an extremely difficult thing. But moving on, and we're not gonna talk for so much longer, but there's a few more things I want to kind of touch on. You decided when you said you decided when you started that you had this kind of 5-year thing, right? Where let's jump in, let's do it. You're practically 5 years later now, right?
Yep.
Almost. So what's the next 5 years? Do you have a new 5-year plan here now? You're obviously still into it. You're obviously still doing things. And what's the next 5 years for Petra and you as well personally? Where are you going?
Personally, I'm happy with my life here.
Yep.
Like Petra has become a team company, So the next 5 years has to be able to maintain that team and improve that team. The people that has spent time with us, we should make their lives better.
Yeah.
And people always ask me and last years have been a bit sad in terms of the youth and the able man energy or I don't know
So here, due to the political situation in Turkey.
so many creative people have left Istanbul. Unfortunately, and there's always this talk about when are you gonna start something in Europe or somewhere else, at least US, whatever. And to be honest, I would only do something in Europe or US or anywhere else if I have something to add to the scene, whatever scene it is. Coffee scene, I don't know, restaurant scene. if I have something to add, then I will do it. If I'm gonna do something that has already been done there, I wouldn't be bothered to. Like that's where a brand, a marketing, and like the things that surround the product, for me stops.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
for me, it has to be like the product itself has to be so good, so different, so unique that it has a place in a city, for example, like London or Paris or New York.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. So the next 5 years would be coming up with a product that would be, but that would benefit people that are living in other cities.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
the next 5 years.
Okay, cool.
And with that, I would be so honored to have my team in different cities.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
people you see here, if you were to see them in Paris tomorrow, that would be awesome.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, that's great.
I think that's a very important part of it, and it's as you know, I have been an employee in several coffee roasteries and coffee businesses around the world as well. And if there's one thing that you're often missing as an employee, and something that is very important as well, for me in my own kind of coffee business is, you know, you need to bet on your staff, right?
Yep.
Your company is never better than the staff you have, and you need to make sure that the people that contribute value to your company is actually, actually get what they deserve for that work in that sense, right?
A really good friend of mine once said, like that's like a start of a story, but a really good friend of mine who worked at a bar, and the bar became the best bar in the world
Yeah.
a couple of years back. The bar is called Drink in Boston. They're really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And he said, the best team is the team you have right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it makes any sense to a listener that is listening right now, but it actually does, because it means that you have to invest in your team.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be looking for a better team. And he might be incorrect. Like
Yeah.
you might have better accountant, you might have better baristas, better roasters, but in terms of a team builder, I don't want to say leader, but like as a manager, when you have that notion, then you start investing in that team.
Yeah.
And that's very important.
Yeah, for sure. I love this. I forget the name, but it's a very, very famous American football coach. He has that kind of thought process or ideas that he advocates to all of his players, and they're like the longest winning scorer in the history of football or whatever. And he always says that we never go in and we never focus on a season. Right? We never even focus on the second half of a game. We're focusing on what's here right now, right? Yeah. Because the only thing you can affect, the only thing you can actually have control of is what you're doing right now at the second, right? So there's a level of focus, which I also personally, in terms of running a business, is sometimes difficult. It's very easy to kind of look at the horizon in that sense, to kind of follow this poetic thread we're into now, instead of just basically, look what's straight in front of you, do that the best way you can, and that will probably lead you to something good. Yeah. Hopefully, right? So really just taking it step by step by step. Let's take the last kind of minutes and just look a bit broader than Petra, outside of Petra. Okay. Let's try to look at coffee. What's your because you're a well-traveled man. You've been around. What's your opinion about coffee? Like, what's your opinion about the state of coffee in the world? Whether it's, I don't know, commercial, capsule, fully, whatever it is, right? What do you think about coffee at the moment?
I think there is a huge elephant in the room in terms of coffee industry, and it doesn't always taste really good in places that really push forward that they taste really good.
Is that
so it's not a automated industry. It's a very people industry. Yeah. So is it going in a positive direction? Do you see, like, when you do your travels, or let's say you go back to Boston now,
after been there before you started Petra, and now after running Petra successfully, do you go back to Boston and are you as excited about coffee in the US as you were when you started, or did this kind of whole process just completely change your perspective on?
It's a really difficult question, like it's
Yeah.
but I think it's everything's being monetized in coffee right now. Like excitement is gone, sort of.
Okay, yeah.
There's definitely better coffees. There's definitely better service, better products
Yeah,
out there,
yeah.
but it has dropped its energy to like 50% at least
Yeah.
since 5 years.
Yeah.
I maybe it's overdone.
Yeah.
That's why because like when you have something new, then everybody's like excited. But after a while, you cannot create new that much.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
very
it's
difficult.
it's more of the same.
I've seen so many coffee roasters and stuff that coffee companies, they go back to traditional ways,
Yeah.
traditional style of serving coffee, not
Yeah.
new. And I've seen in Europe the wave dialogue is gone. Like it's
Yeah.
more about product, which I like, and you can get tasty coffee everywhere, which is great. But I always wonder, and I always ask people coming like yourself.
Yeah.
I ask like, what's new? Like,
Yeah.
is there something new going on? And
Yeah.
most of the time is like not so much.
Yeah, I was actually felt kind of sad when you asked me, like yesterday I think. But I was like, is there anything new? And I was like, well, maybe we have this kind of, I don't know, new cool tamper. That's basically what it is. Or Barista Hustle has figured something out. But there's no true innovation in coffee anymore, right?
Yeah.
I think we all kind of agree on that. And the kind of innovation that does happen is inspired and financed by the commercial market. We're talking, Nespresso, fully automatic machines,
Yeah.
where there is innovation, but we as an industry kind of take a step away from that, which is interesting. Do you have any kind of because for me when it comes to coffee shop, what I'm missing, and you described it very well, saying that there's no excitement anymore, right? You don't go into a coffee shop anymore and get like, I'm really excited
Like
to go to
watch
this.
what everybody's doing. Like that's so
Yeah,
new.
it's
wanna
like wow,
learn
you
about
never
it, yeah.
you the anticipation of going into a coffee shop isn't there anymore. Like for me as well, as it was, the first time I went into into Genshin in the US, that was there was so much excitement. There was something special about that, and now a new coffee shop opens, and first of all, they're gonna have the same coffee as every other coffee shop anyway.
Yeah.
So it's the excitement is off. But do you see is there a future in specialty coffee, or does specialty coffee have to merge into something new to be able to survive? Like where are we going here in the future?
I think the industry gonna become mainstream,
Yeah.
and we're gonna have the things that we're doing new today is gonna be general and generic
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Like
Yeah.
that's what we want.
Yeah,
That-
yeah.
In our business plan, first thing, the first rule is like Petra will push so that good coffee is being drunk everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
That works. Either you sell good coffee,
Yeah.
or you push the competition to sell good coffee.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and in the end, it's gonna come to that. Like good roasters are gonna, and good coffee companies, good service providers are gonna push the competition and themselves to have really good coffee everywhere.
Yeah.
Because everybody wants good coffee. Like
Yeah.
they don't want like I
Yeah.
want bad coffee.
Yeah.
Nobody says that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well, you on the subject of
I'm
good
drawing a blank.
Yeah, no, but I hear you, because it's difficult. Like to some extent, we're going through. It's like saying that technology changed the world. That's kind of bullshit, because we're all the same anyway, right?
Yeah.
It's just a different format. It's the same thing. People
Yeah.
do the same thing.
Yeah.
We act the same thing. The first time someone made the wheel was just as exciting when someone made the new Tesla. Like it's the same thing. It's just a different format, right?
Yeah.
And I also struggle to see
Then I would say
where the future is.
In terms of thinking coffee, we should not be looking for excitement in coffee only.
Yeah.
We should be looking for excitement in service. We should be looking for excitement in added products, added values, not just coffee. Because like coffee, you can make it better, but then it's gonna be like just good coffee. For example, in Petra, that we want to add stuff around coffee. That's probably exciting for you to see because. But after a while, it gets boring for us. Then we try to add more exciting stuff. Capsules is extremely exciting. Different brewing methods, whatever they may be, they're really exciting. It's always good to push people to innovate. I think coffee is the most, if not the most, really entrepreneurial segment of the whole industry. Like the coffee segment that we're in, it's a food product, and for many years I haven't seen food products and food service being related to business this much. Like you said, James Hoffman is talking about coffee as much as business. It's so interesting. And it is like we should be innovating a lot.
And I think that there's a part of it that we're missing. That's partially why what you and me is, are sitting here talking into microphones, trying to do a podcast, because we talk about coffee, and we love that we talk about coffee, but the coffee part is not what's going to save us in that sense. It's not what's going to take us to the next part. It's the people, the companies with the integrity and the business know-how and the ability to keep up the momentum as you mentioned, that will make the difference in the future. And I think that's actually a pretty good way to round this up as well, I think. And why I'm here, why I'm sitting at Petra with Kaan, is because I think you guys are one of those people. I think that what we need to do is that we need to look at the people and the companies that manage to grow but maintain integrity. I think that is the most important part of coffee at the moment, is the most neglected part of coffee at the moment. And I believe those kind of people are the people are going to come up with the solutions, and that's why Kaan is here. That's what we're going to see for the future people in this podcast as well. That's the whole idea with it, to kind of highlight those people. Just to round it up, where can people find you, find your company, social media, whatever? We're going to put all of this in some kind of link thing somewhere here so also people can find it, of course. But if they want to follow you, know more about you, where do they find you?
We're most active on Instagram, and they can find us as Petra Coffee on Instagram. And they can, I always say, like, come to our stores and talk with baristas. I think that's the face of any coffee company, and that's what you would feel most beneficial for yourself when you come and talk to people that prepare your coffee and food and what have you.
You need to experience it, as all good things in that sense. So all of you should just book a plane ticket to Istanbul. It's amazing, and it's beautiful, first of all. And go into Petra, see what they're about. You can probably buy your coffee online. Maybe at the point that we're launching this, maybe we can do that. Let's see. Or we've figured that out for you guys in some way.
If you have that as like a objective right now, you just put that on the table. So
exactly.
We'll make it happen.
We'll make it happen. Shipping will take a long time, but apart from that, we'll make that happen. Cool. Thank you very much, Kaan.
Thank you, Patrick, for having us. It's an honor.
Super nice. From us here at April, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share with your friends, family, and colleagues. Thank you.